Hello. Today we're going to talk briefly about taking data from the keyboard. We're going to expand upon the example we did in the main lecture for lecture 2. So I'm going to begin by opening the file that we did in that lecture. It's held in examples under CIT 230. And it was the temperature conversion application. The first thing that we're going to add to this program is something new. We're going to begin with a new kind of statement called an import statement. The import statement allows us to access classes and from the API library in Java. This is a topic we'll be talking about more throughout the course of this semester, but for today, just understand that when we work with something like system.out or from the system class, that comes from a place in the Java library set called java.lang. Anything that's in java.lang we get for free without having to do an import. In order to do input from a keyboard, we're going to be using something called a scanner, which is not located in java.lang, but rather in something called java.util. And the class that we'll be accessing is called scanner. Now, just as a brief introduction, something that we'll be working with more in the future is if we go into the course shell and go to pages, view all pages, and in our useful links, you'll see that there's a link to the API libraries. This one is for my CIT 230 class, but the same API documentation can be found from the 130 class. When I go into this API documentation or application programming interface library, we'll see that there are a series of libraries. Whoops. Why can't I expand this? There we go. Where different classes are held. And if I go into the one that says java.util, we'll see in there under classes there's one called scanner. And that's what we're going to be working with. Right now, most of what appears in this API documentation is probably too complex for where we're at with understanding, but just taking into account that the scanner class that we need to work with is held in the java.util package or library. Once we import it, we have access to use it. So I'm going to create another variable. This variable will be using the class as the type. This is something that's new, and again, we'll be talking in great detail after the midterm time about creating objects from classes. So for right now, if you don't fully understand, knowing that you can do exactly what I'm doing, and you'll be able to get the same results that I'm getting, and you'll gain understanding throughout the course of the term. So we begin with the type, which is going to be a scanner, and we give it a user-defined name using the same rules we've been using, and we're going to call it keyboard because we want to have the person type the information in. So the keyboard is just the user-defined term. We use a new reserved word that's new. What that says is I want to create an object from a class into a variable. We're just going to make a scanner that represents the keyboard. What we do is we use a special method. We talked about methods. Main is a method. In a few weeks, we'll be talking at much greater length about methods and how they work. But we'll be calling a special method here called a constructor. We pass into it system.in. Remember, the system class we don't have to import because it's part of java.lang. We do not have to import anything from java.lang. Just as system.out represents the console or the monitor where we were printing our messages, in this case, system.in is the system object that refers to the keyboard. So once we've declared a variable and made it the system scanner that we pass system.in, we have the ability to pull data from the keyboard. In this case, we're going to use it to populate what we have for input temp. So what we're going to do is, before we do the calculation, we're going to print something out to the screen to let the user know what they have to type in. If all I did was pull data from the keyboard into the variable but never asked the user for input, they wouldn't know what to do. So we have to direct the end user through the interface to let them know what we want. And we'll just say, please enter in a temperature in Celsius. And we'll do that like that. And I'm actually going to change this from a print line to a print. If you remember from lecture 2, the print won't do that new line. It won't put the things on the next line, so that when we go to pull from the keyboard, it'll be on the same line as the prompt asking them to enter it. So this is just a message to tell the user what you're expecting. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to say input temp equals keyboard dot next double. Keyboard is the input scanner that we created. Next double is a method or an operation of the keyboard that basically says take whatever they type in and treat it as a double, and we'll store it inside of input temp. For now, we have to assume that the person's going to follow directions properly and type in something that is a valid double. Don't get caught up yet at this point in the game on what happens if they type in something that isn't a double. We'll be adding that very soon. We'll be adding that kind of what we call data protection to things very soon. For now, we'll just assume the person's going to type in what they need to type in, and whatever they type in, it will get stored in input temp and then converted. So let's go ahead and save this. Let's go out to our command prompt, and let's take a look at it in operations. CIT 130. Whoops. And then we will do examples, and we will Java C temp conversion.java. Oh, I left out a semicolon. That's easy to do. on the line where I created, put the keyboard into the keyboard named variable. I accidentally forgot my semicolon. Remember, the semicolon is a separator that lets the compiler know that that's the end of a particular statement. And so I resaved. Let's compile again. And now let's do Java temp conversion. If I type in 100, I should get the same result I had before. If I type in 0, we should see 32. The freezing point of water is 32 degrees Celsius, or 32 degrees Fahrenheit, 0 degrees Celsius. That works. And then my favorite trivia question in the world is, what's special about the number -40? -40 is the temperature at which Celsius and Fahrenheit are the same. -40 Celsius and -40 Fahrenheit are the same number. Now you'll notice here I put in one of these with no 0.0 like a normal end user would, and here the same, and here I put the 0.0. I just wanted to show you that you can put in either, because it will be treated as a double because we used this next double. So I just want to go over briefly again what I did and what I added to this program. I added the import java.util.scanner. This gives me access to the class, or I'm going to even say API class, that allows keyboard input. We'll learn a lot more about the scanner and API classes and imports as we go through the class. Then what I did was created the variable, and I'm going to put object in here because I just want you guys to start thinking in that term. Keyboard is an object for the keyboard, the computer keyboard. Computer keyboard. Prompt the user for what we want them to enter at the keyboard, and down here we will read what the user types in at the keyboard as a double precision floating point number, and store it in the input temp variable. Remember, when we were working with variables, we call them variables because the value can change or vary. So we initialized the input temp variable when we declared it with 100, but now we're allowing the user to enter in something on their own, something different. Remember, I know that scanner comes from java.util because over here, when I went to java.util, I saw under classes that there was a scanner option. That gives me this documentation over here. Again, we'll be looking at this stuff in great detail in the future, but I'm just getting you acclimated. When we go down to the method summary, you'll see you'll see that there are a series of methods that start with this next for each kind of data type. Next line and next with nothing are for strings, and then the others are for the primitive types that we discussed in the main part of lecture 2. Here, just for the sake of what we're working on right now, we did next double. That gave me whatever they typed at the keyboard as a double and stored it in input temp. This was a short example, and this is just used as a means to see how to read data from the keyboard. This is something we'll be expanding on in lecture 3 and beyond, so stay tuned for that. Take care.